Abba Yahweh, I am so thankful, Father, for the opportunity to gather here today, Father, with like-minded brethren, Father, with fellows that are searching your matters. And I thank you, Father, that today you will fill our hearts and our minds with your word, with your ruach. I thank you, Father, for your servant Eric. I ask you, Father, to use him as your tool to sharpen us, Father, to just shape us into the people that you want us to be. I thank you, Father, that though this call is here right now, that this call is not limited, Father, by the 2 hours that we have here. But Father, as we go out into YouTube land and internet land, Father, that those who hear will receive your word, because your word says that it will go out and it will not return void. So Father, I plant my feet on those promises, and I thank you, Father, for all who are here and all who will hear. It's in Yeshua's name I pray, amen.
Amen. So today is the letter Yod of the Psalm 119 study. And again, I'll go through if you read the first word of each verse, Idika, Yarayaka, Yadati, Yahina, Ivaoni, Yabasho, Ishuvo, Yehi Lavi. So again, just for bringing the people up to speed, the way that Psalm 119 is written is that the first word of each verse in the 8 verses of the section, in this case, Yod, starts with the letter Yod. And so just have the suggestion that it's possible, maybe David did it on purpose, I don't know, but to say, what if he wrote these 8 words as a sentence on purpose, as a poetic device? So what these words mean, see, if you start off with Yod Dalet Yod Kaf, Yod Dalet is the word Yod, or hand or arm. But Dalet Yod, if Yod is the prefix, meaning essentially he will, Dalet Yod is the word sufficient, and the letter Kaf is reference of you or your. So you could say, he will sufficiently your, or see, if it was Yod Dalet Yod, and then Yod suffix means my arm. So my arm sufficiently your. So what could that mean? Or if it's sometimes you'll have the Yod after a 2 or 3 letter root word, and it doesn't mean my. You'll see in the dictionary, you'll see in the translation that it's almost like just thrown in as a reference to some tense or aspect of the rest of the word. And sometimes the Yod prefix doesn't mean he will. So you can't say, well, it always means third person future, he will do this. You just got to take these things into consideration, not as rules of the way grammar is built or the syntax of how the language is built. There doesn't seem to be solidly fixed rules. So what's in this word is my arm, he will sufficiently, and your. So if I put those all together, the word yod, if you look in the dictionary, it's not just arm or hand, but it's picture, your hand like this, or in the eriktology class, I started off this letter with Tarzan yodeling. It's the letter Yod. It was just play on words. Yod El, that the arm of God, the hand of Elohim. So I also had a picture of an excavator reaching out with this arm and picking up these huge boulders. And if anybody's ever used an excavator before, they're kind of fun to operate, but you pick it up and throw these huge boulders from one pile into the next. And that was kind of a metaphorical picture of the hand or the arm of the creator making a planet or a galaxy or something and pitching it, throwing it out into the universe. So that we would have that picture of like, okay, is that a Kaf or is that a Yod? Both letters are hand, but Kaf is open hand, or maybe it's cupped or kippah. The idea that the Yod is this grabbing, like the excavator arm, this working, this power. So you could look at the word Yod, and say, well, it's also a monument. Like we could look at the Washington Monument over there in the obelisk in Washington, D.C., and say, well, it looks like the number one, like singular, primary, what is an obelisk? A sun tower, whatever it really is, it doesn't matter. It's just this concept. The pronoun for self-referential I is singular vertical. Well, the word Anoki means I am, but the word Anoki, Aleph, Nun, Kaf, Yod, Nun, Kaf means to plummet. It means to fall or descend. If you take a plumb bob building tool, a weight on a string, and you are up high and you drop it because of the physics of the universe, that string will be absolutely perfectly vertical. That's how you can determine verticality. If you don't have a level, water level, or however you want to, any other means of determining what's exactly level, the purest form of absolute verticality is a plumb bob, as they say, a weight at the end of a string, because it's just, there it is. It just, so that idea of something plummeting down is Nun, Kaf. Well, Aleph, Nun, Kaf, Yod, Anoki, or Anki. Aleph could be read as the first letter, I will, and Yod, suffix meaning myself. I will plummet myself down. But Nun, Kaf, it sounds like the word NK or something nicked and dented. Well, you can go, if you're going to buy an appliance, if you go to the nick and dent department, you might find an appliance with a scratch or a dent or something went wrong in shipping or somebody returned it and it's goofed up, but functionally as a machine, it still does what it's supposed to do. It's just not in good condition. So they'll discount the price. So this concept of Nun Kaf also means discounted. So there's the correlation between the English and the Hebrew, Nick, NK. Well, the idea that you can have something perfectly as a vertical drop, or the inverse of that, to stand something up. Well, the word for to stand up is kumi, or to rise up, like kumiori, rise and shine. So the concept of something standing or enduring would be the word kuf mem. Well, if you have an enemy that stands up in your face to block your view or to confront you, to block your progression, like the angel was standing in the path of Balaam riding his donkey, and then the donkey could see the angel, but Balaam couldn't. That's also this concept of kuf mem. But for something to be standing is also the word ayin mem dalet, amad, like the amad basodi of Jeremiah 23, where sod is the hidden foundation, but amad is the standing pillar that's locked on the foundation so it won't yield or tip over. So this concept of something that's solid, that's established, that's in place, it's just what it is. It's built that way. It's, picture that Yod arm grabbing a hold, and so, but the word to take hold is kuf het. And if you look in the dictionary, it'll say, well, you got to look at Yod kuf het to find take hold. And what locks in my mind for take hold is Zola Levitt wrote a book called Take Hold way back in 2001, 2002 was when I saw that book, and it went out of print. But It was a great book. It had all these basic fundamental principles of the Torah. And this organization was putting out a newsletter every month called it was called just the Levitt letter, Zola Levitt's newsletter. And that book was succinct. It was to the point. It wasn't real big and wordy, but it hit all the key points of things that we really should regard. Well, who's we? And it's like, well, everybody. Well, who's this stuff for, or who's this stuff talking about? The letter Yud in the dictionary can also mean a monument, like the Washington Monument, or something that's standing up to remind us, who's we, to remind us who we are and what we're obligated to do. Well, now you have to look at this pattern of coming Mishkan pattern and say, okay, as I mentioned with the letter Tet, as we start going through the progressive letters, it starts branching and getting more complex than at the very beginning. The first letter, Aleph, I am, I will, identity and intent. That's pretty simple. Who's speaking? Who's writing this communication? Well, it could be that the Almighty is speaking. What's the communication? The alphabet. That's the message. What does it mean? Well, how do you read the alphabet? But if the first letter of the alphabet is Aleph, and if it really is I am and I will, then the answer to, well, who are you, is in the following letters. And what are you trying to say? What do you mean you will? You will what? What are you going to do that you're trying to let us know you're going to do? That's also in the letters. But if I say, listen, I'm talking about myself now. Well, the way the alphabet works is that I can say the Aleph is self-referential of myself. So I can say, I've been imparted a personal consciousness. So now I can look at the entire alphabet as if it's me. What is bet? Noun, object, body, house. Hey, I exist in the universe. Okay, what's Gimel? Well, I have mobility. I have option. And then if I jump outside of this, you might say, paradigm of way of looking at the letters and look at the fact that he's the Aleph, the Elohim, the creator, is the Aleph, then I can say, oh, we were talking about Gimel being the option of connection to or remove, separated from. Well, so then that reminds me of the parable of the prodigal son, where the father had two sons and he had enough wealth that he had, I guess, a farm and business. And the younger son says to his dad, hey, I want to take my inheritance right now and opt out of continuing with the family business, but I'm going to go out on my own venture and do whatever. So his dad gave it to him and he went off. But then he was partying with some new friends in the far country. But then there was a famine and he went broke. You know, the guy that was feeding the pigs, and said, hey, why don't I go home? Because the word pig means one who returns. And the son was feeding the pigs and thinking, hey, why don't I return? He was thinking, hey, I wish I could eat the food of one of these pigs. And so the play in the Hebrew words that I see there is that because the word pig, chazir, chet zayin yod resh, in Hebrew means one who returns, then for him to have the thought, I wish I could eat the food of one who returns. Hey, if I go back to my father's house, I could eat the food of one who returns. I could eat the food off my father's table instead of not having any food. And they feed like day old vegetables that you can't sell in the store any longer, which are perfectly good, ripe. They'll feed them to the pigs. Sometimes they sour them, but not always. The point is, once you start looking at the Hebrew words, there's these play on words, synonyms, innuendos, rhymes. Like for I believe it was Jeremiah. I didn't Zechariah. I think it was Jeremiah, where in the very beginning of the chapter, YHUH says to him, "Hey, what do you see?" And he says, "I see an almond." And YHWH says, "Ah, very well, very good, good notice, good call. Even so, I'm going to be industrious and zealous about all my stuff." It's like, what's that got to do with an almond? Why did he show him an almond tree or an almond branch and say, "What do you see?" And then he says, "Even so," because the word almond in Hebrew is shin kuf dalet, the exact same word as industrious and diligent. It's the same word. Shin kuf dalet means both almond and industrious and diligent, which is to say, zealous about having an idea, having a plan, and seeing it through to accomplishment. Well, that's also kind of the message in the Yod. This, my strong arm, I have this idea, and I'm going to put my hand to it, and I'm going to work it through to manifest, to completion, to there it is. Those are Yod concepts. Though these other letters, other words, kuf mem, is that an adversary? That's a powerful one going, and it's like, that's the Yod. But to rise up with power and might, that's also Yodness. Kumiori, arise and shine. The light is shining, so that's a Yodness. It's a type of picture of power, of strength, determination, perseverance, endurance. So the word Amad, Ayin Mem Dalet, the English definitions are not just something which stands, which is like Kuf Mem, whether it's an adversary or something that's established. It also means then to be authorized, established, founded. This is what's, say, institutionalized. In other words, it's a primary fixture. Well, so then part of the contemplation of what's going on here is that if I look back at the Mishkan pattern and say, well, you got the first 7 letters outside the fence, and then there's the fence, the cat, then the basket, or the full something pictured by a basket is the letter tet. Now here's this Yod. So when I look at the letter Yod, I can say, well, what is the letter Yod? A strong hand that grabs and does. That's one aspect. And I could say, well, being the 10th letter, there's a legal matter that I've heard that the Jews believe and adhere to culturally, if not spiritually, thinking that this is a reality. I don't know. I was never taught it, but this is what they believe and practice, is that you got to have 10 men in order to have a legal quorum, a minimum count of 10 men, and then you can have a prayer meeting, or then you can go on and have your Bible study, but you got to have 10 men. If you only got 9, or if you've got a few women, those don't count, or children, you got to have 10 men. Well, Yod is the number 10, meaning it's the 10th letter in the letter that represents the count of 10. But it's not just 10. I mean, yeah, that's the number, but Ayin Shin Resh is 10. Ayin Shin Resh is the word that means 10, but Ayin Shin Resh, Asher, as in the word 10 commandments, Asher Devarim, 10 commandments, also means to be wealthy and enriched. Well, that's your power and strength being fortified. So what I'm trying to say is that each word, you might say, isn't to be regarded all by itself, though it can be. Yod is Yod, but it, let's say it collaborates with synonyms and other words which represent the same notions. And so that I can look at those words like Ayin Shin Resh and Kuf Mem or Kufav Mem or even something that's like I am Mem Dalit, a mod, but then something which is the foundation of what's holding the Ahmad in place, that's also got to be secure, a secure foundation, like building on the rock instead of on the sand. So these are kind of Yod concepts also. Well, once you start elaborating how this all fits together, and let me just say it's my personal experience that as I ponder, as I think about the letters, the meaning of the letters, the placement of the letters, and you might say the operational functionality of the letters in the universe. If I'm sitting there considering, oh, how does the brain work? Synapses, that's the scientific answer. Neurons firing and bumping it. Well, the way that neurons work is that one has to be next to this other one, and there's a little gap, like a spark plug gap, and there's a flash of electricity, you might say, and information is moved from here to here. And it's like, okay, so you're moving information. So what? Well, that's what thinking is. And on TED Talks, somebody was saying that, well, if you contemplate one subject for 20 minutes, your neural synapses will form links or like bridges where they're built in and they're solid and they'll remain for 7 years, as I understand it. And if you don't keep thinking about that subject, once it's been locked in and endures for 7 years, if you don't keep thinking about it, it'll disappear. But if you don't think about something for 20 minutes, it won't form the same kind of bridges and it'll decay or disappear faster. If you keep thinking and using, then the bridge is fortified and it will, what it means is that the like chain links in the chain, stepping stones along a garden path, boom, 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 the sequence of firing of the neural, just like the letters of the alphabet going in sequence, alphabet, gimel, dal, hey, vav. The more you do that, the more it's built in. So that's a functional development while in use. Well, if that's the way we're built, my experience seems to be that if I'm, let's say there's the scripture that says it's the glory of Elohim to hide a matter and the glory of kings to seek it out. I was talking to somebody the other day about this a few days ago, and I think he might have mentioned it, the glory of kings to seek it out. And it's like, well, that word king isn't necessarily a king. Well, it is, but it's not necessarily the way I might think of a king, meaning, is it the king of France, the king of Spain, the king of England, or the guy with the crown and the robe, that picture, the medieval picture, or maybe Caesar, like Julius Caesar from way back when, that kind of a king? Well, maybe it's just like if all the normal peasants have to go to work, they don't have time to seek out a mystery. They're working and then they're tired and they have to make food and come home and rest so they can get up the next day and till that soil. And it's like, how do you seek out a mystery? Do you have the option? Do you have the free time where you can go to the library or nowadays look online and just search? And so is a king some sort of a wealthy man? I mean, generally a king will be considered a wealthy man, but maybe he's just big and tough and strong, a warlord. He's the strongest guy, so he's the king. Well, Mem Lamed Kaf is the word king, Melech. But there's another way to read that, meaning that the letter Mem is a prefix and it means the one who, or the place at which, or the non-substantive noun given a type of substance, like the word knowledge. That's a noun, but it's not a thing. So if you put dalet ayin as the word knowledge, mem dalet ayin means like the announcement, or that knowledge which is attainable as if it were a thing. So a garden, gimel noon, gan, well, a garden is something guarded. What do you guard a garden with? Well, you could put a fence, you could put lights to make sure that if there's any intruder, it comes on, cameras, those are guarding the garden. You could have different things that guard the garden, but a shield is mogan, mem gimel noon. The object which guards is mogan. Mogan David is a type of wine that people might be familiar with. It's not just a name, it's a shield. So you could say, well, this idea of yod is, going back to that, is inside the fence. And now if it's used as a suffix, it means my. So if I read the alphabet pattern that Aleph is Elohim, the first 10 letters function as a minion. This is my stuff that I'm going to do. Aleph starts with meaning I will, and Yod means this is mine. Then I can read those first 10 letters as a package of his saying I'm going to do this. Okay. And every time I see a Yod suffix, if it's on a word where I'm speaking, then it means my, or like I said in the very beginning, sometimes I see that the Yod is in there, especially if it's followed by a kaf or a tav kaf, and it doesn't mean my, but it has something to do with the essence of the word itself. And it's like, okay, I just got to get used to that. But what I found is that as I'm thinking and pondering, like this word melech, the word lamed kaf means this is yours, or the letter lamed is a prefix letter. It means unto, possessed by, or regarding. And the word kaf, or the letter kaf as a suffix, means yours or you. So there's a parashah called Lech Lekah, where Abraham was told, get up and go. You get out, or this is your command, go. So, and it's lamed kaf, two words, and it's pronounced Lech Lekah, or it could be Laka Laka. But this is yours, get up and go. So lamed is a letter, the 12th letter, which is go, but it's a shepherd staff. It means teach or learn. But it's an authoritative order. Okay, go. And kaf is the open hand, and it means, as a suffix you. So mem isn't just king, it means one who listens to the counsel of what he's told to do by the authority. Well, the king is the authority. He's the one that gives the counsel of you do this and you do that. So I could read the word melech, king, as one who tells other people what to do, or like let's say in the United States government, the executive, the president, has a bunch of people on his cabinet, and he doesn't necessarily have the time to go out and get the information, but he has, you go find out what's happening here and come back and report. And he says that to a dozen different people, and they come back and they give him a briefing, and then he makes the determination of who's now going to respond by doing this or that or establish governmental policy. So if you look in the dictionary, it says melech is one who takes counsel. Okay, so the lamed kaf is the counsel, and mem is the one who does that. But if mem is the object, and lamed is a prefix letter meaning belonging to, like ani la dodi, vedodi li, la dodi means belonging to my beloved, and li, lamed yod, means mine. So lamed is a possessive prefix letter. This is what's possessed. It's mine, or it's yours, or it's. So I could look at the word melech as like the thing that belongs to you. Yeah, but it's translated king. I plug it back in to that equation. It's the glory of Elohim to hide a matter. And it's the glory of one who, what? To seek it out. The one who wants to possess what might be theirs, could be theirs. If what? If he seeks out what he's supposed to seek out and makes it theirs. Well, then, if I'm going to make it mine, like the first 10 letters, then I could say Yod is the possessive hand that's done what? That's done the Melech thing. Listened to the counsel advice and sought out what's the best option, thought about it, processed it, and then grabbed a hold, QOOF-YOD-TET, like that book by Zola Levitt, and then turned that energy into action, whether it's you do this, you do that, you do this, like the superintendent, or whether it's the guy who's putting his hand to the task either way. But see, all that's just simply translated king, meaning somebody else who has time and authority and wealth. And it's like, it could be me if I have none of those things. I could still take it to my heart. So if I take the letter mem as meaning one who takes it to their heart, take what to their heart? The lamed, the authority of, and then if I appropriate the meaning of the letter kaf to the Torah instructions, meaning kaf is open hand lines, lines of instructions. Well, if I read in the alphabetic letter sequence, let's say we're here inside the fence, so reference going back outside the fence, I put before you life and death, blessing and cursing, and I urge you to choose life. That's what Moshe said. Okay, to choose life is to stand outside the fence and enter the fence of blue, purple, red, white, the Yahweh's name and colors, as it were, Yod Vav He. You come in, he claims you as his own, Tet. You're in his basket, and he's the owner of the basket. He's the Yod of the Tet. Okay. But then, and he did it for you. I could say Kaf is next letter, the suffix after the Yod. So that means you or yours. One way to read it. But then I could say, okay, but now once I'm inside the fence, and I'm going to take as my mind, my disposition of belief and secure understanding that I'm his and he's mine. Ani ladodi vedodi li. That's the meaning of the Tet and the Yod. I'm going to then determine to have confidence in that status. Yeah, but what if I'm wrong? Well, that's later. But the word for bet tet het is to have security and confidence. Like, I know I'm insured. Yeah, but you missed your insurance payment. You're not covered. What? Get hit. It's kind of strange how the one day that your insurance coverage lapses on your car because you missed a payment, it's the day you hit somebody. I've seen that happen to me and other people. It's like, what? Gosh, is there some sort of energy vibe in the universe that makes that stuff happen? Just to, gotcha. I don't know. The point is just looking at life and saying, how does this stuff work? What I've found is that there's a process of thinking. And I mentioned a story before. I'll mention it again. I don't know how many people hear a bunch of stuff I talked about a long time ago, but I think it's an interesting story. There's a fellow by the name of Douglas Hofstadter, wrote a few books, but one of them was called Metamagical Themes. Some friend brought it to my attention years ago. And the guy was, back before there was internet, there was this magazine called Scientific American, and he was an editor or a journal. He had a column in that magazine. And it's kind of like a blog now where you say something and other people are live, like on this show, and people can make comments and then he'll respond, but otherwise the magazine came out every month. And so it was like really drawn out, but people would talk about certain subjects. And his subjects were really outlandish, outrageous. They were just, woo. he'd mess around with language and ideas. And as I was sitting there reading some of this stuff that he had, like in this one book in particular, the time to linger and think and process to me was, well, I could put it in the capacity of fun. Are we having fun yet? Well, the fun was thinking, processing, neural synapsing the stuff this guy was writing about. And the benefit was not in the destination, it was in the journey. It was in the process. And I noticed, and I tried to put it into words as I was describing it to someone. Back when I was a kid, you could ride your bicycle and didn't have to wear a helmet. In fact, you could ride a motorcycle and didn't have to wear a helmet. I'm sure a lot of people got injured, and so now in the United States, it's a law. You have to wear your helmet, or cops will stop you, get a ticket and whatever else. But the point is, there was something fun, exhilarating, like a dog sticking his head out a car window when you're going 60 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour down the highway. Unless a bug hits you in the face, but putting your face past the windscreen and just letting the wind blow through your hair. There's something about that which is its own experience, which I find to be, let me just use the word pleasurable, delightful, fun. It's like you can only get that experience by sticking your head out the window while you're going fast. Well, it's dangerous. You might get hit with a bug or a stone or something kicked up from a vehicle in front of you. That's right. It's risky, but it's also kind of fun. Well, what I found is that reading Douglas Hofstadter's book, I said it was like riding a motorcycle and you're letting the hair of your brain fly in the wind. It's like the hair of your brain riding a motorcycle and feeling the wind blow through its hair. What? That's the best description I could come up with. Thinking for the fun of thinking, processing, taking time, lingering, loitering on the subject, kind of like what I'm doing right now, pondering, meditating. It's like, give me the answer. I just want to know the truth. It's like, no, wait a minute. I'm not putting that down, but what I'm saying is what I've found is that there's, at least for me personally, there's some benefit of, I'll use these verbs, pondering, thinking, meditating, mulling, just lingering with thoughts. And I find that to be exhilarating, as kind of a pushing it for pretty far out there, but there's something about thinking which is its own reward, its own benefit. It's not just, yeah, but what's your conclusion? No, that's the destination. The process of thinking. And then to say, what are you thinking about? Yeah, but what if we're thinking about YHUH stuff? So what I'm saying is to ponder the spelling of these words, to be thinking about what did he say? I find that there is a great advantage in contemplating, just dwelling on. And it's like, I'm trying to say, I'm not even sure how to use better words to describe that. But I don't know if anybody else has a better way to describe it either, but maybe somebody does. Maybe I'm just at a lack of loss for the words to say succinctly, but what I'm saying is that what does it mean to think about his stuff? Do you know what the letters mean? It's not about knowing what the letters mean. It's about the process of thinking about the letters as you're going through, in which case you might be looking at one and it reaches out over here and it's like, well, maybe reaching, oh, there you go, there's something more there. And think about this and think about that. And it's like, it takes time, but there's something about being alive, being conscious, and doing that, which is its own thing to do, which is its own pleasure in doing. It's not just a matter of, yeah, I got that. It's a matter of being there while you're doing that. So it's the glory of kings to discover the matter. Is that like, hey, I found the treasure, I'm going to stick it on my shelf, cut the head off and mount it on the wall? It's like, no, wait a minute. What is the process? The letter Lamed means teach and learn. Well, first you got to learn, then you got to teach. And then it also means repeat, keep doing it. What's that got to do with a king? The word malak, mem lamed aleph kaf, is a messenger, translated angel, or one that the king says, hey, you go and send this message over there to that guy, or you go accomplish this task. And so the messenger is one who is sent on the mission of lamed kafing. And it's like, what does he want us to do? If I'm going to make this stuff mine, give it to me, now it's mine, I'll write my name on it, put it in my pocket, and run to go do some other important thing. There's something about the dwelling. This is my point I'm trying to get at. There's something about the pondering of Yahuwah's stuff, which once you see what it is, you can do from inside the Mishkan, as it were, that was inaccessible to you, unavailable. You had no idea. Nobody had said it was important or beautiful or significant or worthwhile while you were outside this perspective, this understanding. There's something, there's a beauty, there's an experience, an aroma, a fragrance, a taste that is part of the journey, not the destination. And there's something about that somebody can suggest, I suggest you choose life. And it's like, okay, I choose life. And then what? Well, what does life feel like, taste like, smell like? There's this word that we mentioned, is to smell the aroma of wine, or to, maybe it's one of these words that we'll bump into later in this study here. But what I'm saying is that the process, the experience of being alive, of being conscious, of making it yours, is not necessarily just give me the answer, give me the sum, the conclusion, give me the truth. It's an experience of being, of thinking about his stuff. And one thing I've found is that the answer doesn't come necessarily right away. What does word melech mean? King. Okay, got it. Let's go. Say memming. Well, what's mem? Water. Or somebody else might say mem means chaos. It's like, oh, chaos, the teaching of your hand, mem lamed kaf. It's like chaos, the teaching of your hand. What does? But if I say mem is being pregnant, well, how long is a pregnancy? Well, in humans, it's 40 weeks until the baby is born. So I could look at mem noon as 40 weeks of gestation, and then noon is the baby being born out of the mem. It's one way to look at it. And I could say, well, then what's mem lamed kaf? 40 weeks of contemplating the instruction that he gave you. That's mem lamed kaf. And it's the glory of ones who will do that in the discovery of the treasure. See, by saying all this, what I've tried to do here is say, hidden within the language is a whole nother process of appreciating the language. And by looking at the spelling of the words, you have to do it for yourself. I can show you what I've seen. I can tell you how I've come about it, but it's not about just give me the answer and there it is. It's about lingering, loitering, pondering. In fact, that word Haggah is navigating, like the word navy. Those who are out on the sea or flying in the air and they're, where are we? You're moving. You better figure out where you're going before you run aground or you get lost. How do you navigate? The word Haggah means literally navigation, but it also means rudder, helm, and steering wheel. The mechanical apparatus you use to turn and move and go here, there. In other words, how do I get to where I think I want to go? It also means to spell words phonetically. So Haggah, navigating, meditating, pondering, is this process of reading the current of the water, reading the stars, reading the winds, reading the dynamics of the weather, and whatever else you have around you. Some people know how to read the stuff they see floating on the water or the behavior of the birds, the behavior of the fish to know where they are. All that's part of the process. And to find that to be fun, like reading some of Douglas Hofstadter's stuff, is like, I didn't even know my mind could think about the stuff that he was writing about. And I called up somebody, says, hey, listen to this. And I read it and it's like, why are you telling me this? What am I supposed to do with that? Just feel the wind blowing through the hair of your brain, just for the fun of it, just because you're alive. I'm trying to do something and you interrupt my life with this? Yeah. It's like, hey, this tastes interesting. Taste this. What, am I supposed to eat it? No, just experience the taste for a moment. I was talking to a guy once. He owned a company that made coffee and chocolate. And he was saying that, and his company had won Pegasus chocolates. He had won international competitions. And he's saying the measure of both, the measure of a good coffee and a good chocolate is that once you put it in your mouth and it's no longer there, say you swallow it, how long does the taste linger? A poor quality coffee and chocolate will disappear within a few seconds. Maybe it'll linger for 30 seconds or a minute, but a really good one, man, 2 or 3 minutes later, you can still taste that because the oils have gotten into the taste buds somehow. That was the measure of the best. Can you appreciate the lingering flavor, enduring, persisting through time? And it's like, to me, that's what this stuff of the Aleph-Bet, this stuff of what did Yahweh say? It's not just memorizing a few verses or knowing his law or saying, yes, I have a ticket to salvation. But there's something about just thinking about the stuff. So what's mine? What's mine if I choose life and come into this kingdom and then believe that I'm secure in my faith, the tetness of my entering the chet, and now I'm his and he's mine, ani ladodi vidodi li, that's the yod. But now if he says, yeah, but now that you're in here, yes, you have things that are yours, but there's also something demanded of you. There's, let's call them obligations and responsibilities. It's like, what? Yeah, I've got something for you to do. There's something that you must do now that you're in here. And you could say, yeah, but I don't know anything. Well, then you got to learn. Well, that's where you start. You got to learn. That's the Kaf. Keep repeating. There's the Lamed. Take it to your heart. There's the Mem. Well, take what to heart? What are you supposed to be doing? Well, then you got to be doing it. Well, that's Samakai and Pei. We'll get to that. Future letters. But When David says, going back here to what he said in 119, Yod Dalet Yod Kaf, your hand, you sufficiently empower my arm to do what? Well, it could be that David's saying, hey, listen, I'm a farmer and I've got to have strong arms and a strong back, and you just empower me at my daily task. Okay, fine. Or he could say, hey, David's a warrior and you empower my arms so that I can get out there and fight the enemy. Okay, sure. But those are life things that David can be talking about. But what's he talking about if I say the perspective of the Yod inside this Het of the Mishkan pattern, and I'm putting Het Tet Yod as this triad, this triplet group together, then Kaf and Lamed are on their own, lining up the barbecue grill. Memnun are on their own, lining up with the laver. Samach and Pei are on their own, lining up with what's in the covered place of the Mishkan. So I can look at this and say, this has to do with the fence. This is the primary consideration of choose life, be possessed by him, Tet, in this full basket of now, what am I supposed to be about the business of doing that he's going to sufficiently empower my arm? Then if I look at this next word, Yira Yaka, Yod Resh Aleph Yod Kaf, Resh Aleph Hey is to see. Resh Aleph Yod, it says, means mirror, or something about my seeing. What do I see? And the Yod Resh Aleph means he will see my you. So that's what I'm trying to say. I'm using this word as an example for saying, if I think that the Yod as a prefix means he will, Aleph would have been I will. And then Yod Resh Aleph Yod, if the Yod is referring to the Resh Aleph as being my view, my seeing, and the Kaf suffix means you. So if these things were exact fixed, this equals that and that equals that, I'd have to say this word means he will see my you. Doesn't make any sense. So I look in the dictionary, and Yira, Yod Resh Aleph, is the word to fear. Altira, Aleph Lamed hyphen, or Lamed Aleph hyphen, Lo Tira means do not fear. But so Yira means fear, but it's also reverence, or to have a fitting regard of Yahuwah's. Don't mess with him. Don't get him mad. I mean, he's like your father, your boss, your commanding officer, and it's like, take it as a regard of good counsel. Well, Yira Yaka. So if I'm trying to pull all of these meanings together, if Resh Aleph is to see, Resh Aleph Hey, actually, Resh Aleph Yod means I see. If Yod Resh Aleph is fear and Kaf means your, then I could say that I take this word as meaning I see your fearsomeness, or I see something about what you have allowed me to see from this perspective in here, that I have a great reverence of. I'm not gonna take anything for granted. I'm not gonna push you. I'm not gonna intentionally get you angry. I have a respect. Then the word Yod Dalet Ayin Tav Yod. Well, the Tav Yod suffix, I have or I will. That's past or future tense. Yod Dalet Ayin is Yada, but Yod prefix means he will. But Yada is just the concept of experiential knowledge. So here I could say, well, I will have experiential knowledge. I have had experiential knowledge. Regarding what? His fearsomeness. So it's kind of like David saying, hey, I've bumped into stuff before. With David and Goliath, what was David thinking or feeling or experiencing when he picked up that rock and threw it at that giant, and the giant fell and he took his head off? I mean, do we have to go there with those kind of macabre, gruesome stories of war? A friend was telling me one time, he says, I don't want to even hear about that stuff. I want to believe God is love. My God is the God of tender loving kindness. I don't want to hear these war stories. And it's like, Yahweh goes by the name of Yahuwah Zavot. Zavot is a military leader of legions, of hosts. It's a military conflict. Against who? He's the only big guy. There is no other gods. Did he invent the devil on purpose so he'd have an adversary, so he'd have somebody to fight? I mean, you got a whole army, you got to fight somebody. That's what it's about, isn't it? Or maybe he invents space aliens and fights against them. I don't know what he's doing. And when I say I don't know what he's doing, I'm just messing with imaginary ponderings of these words. And someone was telling me, quit saying that you don't know what he's doing, because he gave us the spirit of truth to lead us in all truth. So shut up with your nonsense of imaginings. And it's like, well, is it okay to imagine with thinking? It's a question. Don't mean to offend people. But the next word, Yehi-na, Nun Aleph, is sometimes translated as now, like N-A, nah, now. It sounds like the English word now, but it's you'll see the phrase written in scripture, Hoshana, Hoshana, Hosanna in the highest. Hosanna is like its own word of praise, Hosanna in the highest. Well, Hosha means save, and Nun Aleph means please. So actually, and I say this because way back when we'd sing this song in church and everybody's like, Hosanna in the highest. It was like this song of worship, of stating this almost like a transcendental phase into some other dimension of singing him praise. But literally what the words are in Hebrew is save now, save us now, please. And it's like, well, wait a minute, that's a whole different expression than Hosanna in the highest. Save us now in the highest? Or the word for Ayin Lamed Yod, Elyon, is the highest. And are you asking the one who's in the highest to save us, to lift us up out of here? See, what I found in my own experience is that I had English words and English songs and English verses, and I had a certain understanding of the way the universe was built and how it worked and what the kingdom of heaven was and who he was. And then all of a sudden, when I start learning Hebrew, I'm bumping into problems, and it doesn't work that way. It's different words and different concepts and different meanings and different pictures. And it's like, hey, wait a minute, some of those other ones were pretty nice. Doesn't matter they were pretty nice. Doesn't mean they're completely wrong, but that's not what these words are saying. Gosh, do I supplement my reality, or do I have to exchange and get rid of my other reality to get this reality? And how do I do that? Well, do you want to know the truth? It's like, well, just tell me. No. What if it's a process? What if hearing or knowing the truth is not him just saying, here, I'll pick you up and teleport you. You were here with a certain understanding, and I'm going to pick you up and move you over here. Boom, now you got another understanding. Hey, how about that? Your whole world looks different. Or does he take us on a journey of understanding? If he takes us on a journey of understanding, then it's like, remember, Yeshua said, you've heard it was said, such and such, but I'm telling you, and it's like, hey, wait a minute, are you changing stuff? No, I'm telling you what it really is, because what you heard was wrong or incomplete or insufficient. And the concept of Dalet Yod means sufficient. So I can pull this, I can pull all this stuff in. If Yod Dalet is arm, Dalet Yod is sufficient, and Yod Dalet Yod means Yod Kaf means you will sufficiently empower my arm to do what? To do what's necessary. Well, if the necessary thing, as soon as I come into the fence, I chose life, and so now I have to understand that I am his and he is mine, and whatever's in here is now my world, my universe, my everything. Change your thinking, change your understanding, change the paradigm, change your expectation, your hope. Everything is different. Now it's his, what he made in the reality of that. And whatever it was you heard while you were on the outside, wasn't necessarily a crime, wasn't necessarily a sin, but wasn't necessarily true. And it might have been a lie and a deception and an intentional distortion to keep you away from here. But now, from in here, there's a way to see the truth. And whether he just inputs the truth, download, open up your skull and drop it in and close it back. Oh, now I see. Or is it a process of thinking? What did he say? Please guide me. Please help me. Please steer me navigating into the understanding of your truth, the understanding of your truth. So there's a proverb, he says, if any man lacks wisdom, let him ask. Please give me wisdom. And with your wisdom, make sure you get understanding. Oh, okay. Do you want a hamburger? Yeah, okay. Can I have fries also? That kind of concept is like, get that other thing that goes with it. Yeah, but how do you process understanding? It's haga-ing, think-ing, process-ing, using your mind and your heart. See, the mind's not a criminal, human, carnal, bad thing to use, though I've heard people disparage it over the years. If David says, I see your fearsomeness, that's to say, well, the word yirah means fearsome, but the word fearsome is like, he's a scary dude, man. You don't get him mad. It might just be getting a sense while pondering of this majestic power. See, for the schools to teach, university levels even, and in professional capacity of scientists, there's no God, there's no creator of the universe, there's no intelligent designer who made this place exist. It all just happened. It's like, oh, it all just happened. Well, who's your God? Well, he's just some guy we believe in to get to heaven when we die. It's like, well, whatever. It's like, wait a minute. All those words have denied whoever believes those words the occasion to think about the grandeur of the one, the mind, the hand of the creator who designed and built this universe. Think about that. And think if you were told, if you were taught while you were going to school that all this place evolved and there is no creator. Imagine that you never had the thought that there was a creator, because that's some stupid, goofy religious thing that wackos believe in. And so you never believed in it. And all of a sudden you come to realize or accept the belief that, oh, there's a creator. And in specific, it's YHUH, the guy who, according to Genesis, built the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh. So that's his day that gives him a personal regard, and that you can be on his team. You can join his colors. You can be his people. You can be his Dodi. Oh, I don't know anything about that, but I choose to make that mine. Yes, thank you. And then you step in and receive his ruach, his mind, his way of doing things, where suddenly your entire being is transformed. And then as you look around, it's like, he designed this. He thought of this. He invented the notion of beauty. He designed the functioning of every plant, every bug, every animal. He designed the human heart. He designed the way the eyeballs work and fingernails are formed and emotions are tugged at when you see this or feel that. And it's like, wow. That regard of regard is denied people by the millions who are not allowed to think of an intelligent designer in general, then in specifically YHUH. So for David to say, I know, and cause it to be, exist, please. He's on board and you might say wanting more. The next word, Yod Bet Aleph Vav Nun Yod. Aleph Vav Nun has to do with a deed of purchase, trouble and sorrow, but also the opposite, vigor and strength. Nun Yod is myself engaged in the action. Bet Aleph is the coming or the entrance, the arrival. So if David is saying, I have the deed of purchase for both trouble and sorrow, and victory or vigor, strength, how does this place work? If what I think about is what I put my hand to, if what I do, I've got an option. It's not just destiny, but it's actually, I can affect my reality. I can affect my future. To what extent? And then you start hearing about when people talk about philosophical woo-woo or New Age or other religions, and you're going, name it and claim it. Is it karma? Is what you do is going to come back on you? I remember having once a conversation with a guy I was working with, and he said, well, what comes around goes around. And I said, no, that's not the way it works. The phrase is what goes around comes around. He says, yeah, half of one, six of another. I was like, no, it's not. They're two completely different concepts. What comes around goes around, meaning whatever comes at you, you're going to turn around and just pass it on to somebody else. Yeah, that's right. But the phrase is what goes around, what you generate and throw out is what comes back. Yeah, same thing, like a boomerang. I refused to listen that there's a distinction in those two phrases. And I don't know, sometimes that guy would just pretend to be deaf, let's say, on purpose to agitate. He used to do that to his own father. His dad would be talking to him and having a serious talk for sometime 15 minutes, a half an hour, and all of a sudden you go, huh, did you say something? It's like, what? So whether the guy was just absolutely so dense he couldn't comprehend, literally, or whether he was just agitating, I think it was maybe a little bit of both. But my point is, if the way the universe works is that what you do comes back on you, that's what goes around comes back like a boomerang. And so when Yeshua says the measure you used will be measured to you, well, that's karma. It's not some other religion, Hindu, whatever they mean by the word karma. It's whatever you sow, that's what you will reap. Your own way is measured back on your own head. That's mishpat. So for me to think of mishpat in particular as everything I do is going to come back on me, whether it's visible or invisible. For David to say, I get it. And we're going to see in the next hour the play out of a couple verses. Time to quit here in just a moment. That if you translate the word, yes, I study your judgments. No, for David to say, I regard your mishpat means, listen, I believe that when you said whatever I do is going to come back, I'm going to watch my step because whatever I do is going to come back. See, that's a whole different take. Ibasho, it's embarrassing, withered, dried up. It's returnable, refundable, explanation, inhibited, not wild. All a matter of fact, it's in me. It's all about my heart, cause my heart to exist. What he's saying here is, I choose to believe, help my unbelief. That's, I think it was Thomas who said that. It's a matter of saying, listen, I want to believe the truth. Please tell me the truth and help me understand the truth and help me process the truth by making it my life now that I'm in here. And I want to be all about your stuff. I don't want to just hold on to stuff that isn't true or only partially true. Let me see what's real so that I can make it mine and I can put my hand to that task, knowing full well that you will sufficiently empower my arm to be Israel, to be your abadi, your servant, your worshiper, and the one that you have waited for centuries, for millennia, for your people to listen to your voice and simply, would you please do what I say so we can get on with the reason why this whole thing exists? Well, then that's what Yod is about. Now that you're in here, put your hand to the task of being his people. Okay, I will. Time to take a break.